Danger Dolan. So for this video, I thought I would mix up the usual WoW Q&A questions with some general gaming stuff, which you will see here with the first question from Zach Wanda. How do you think the future of gaming is going to evolve, meaning the future platforms and science fiction idea of a hologram? Because it has always interested me with all these new motion control ideas, but what are your thoughts on what's the next big gaming technological breakthrough? That's a good question. The thing that I think is going to take off in the gaming industry next is probably something like virtual reality with the Oculus Rift, the Gear VR, and the Morpheus by Sony. Now, I didn't buy into the whole, 3Ds, monitors and TVs, and now we've got 4K resolutions and higher hertz. Now, technically those are upgrades. They feel better, but they're not a breakthrough by any means. So I have an Oculus Rift. I only got it recently, and believe me when I tell you that it is immersion like nothing else. Like, you can have the best monitor ever, but when you are in the world and you're in the eyes of a character, that's incredibly immersive. Like, for instance, there's a recent game called, I think it's Star Wars Battle of Endor, in which you take command of, I think it's an X-Wing fighter, going through space, blowing up enemy ships. The way they've set it up is that you have the eyes of the person in the ship, so let's say you lean to the right, you can see out of the cockpit and actually look around in like a full kind of 360 motion. Now, when you have a headset and these monitors over your eyes, you actually do feel like you're there. Same thing with horror games. I've actually been playing a couple, none have been the killer app, but a lot of them, you really do shit your pants when you're walking through woods and stuff. But there is a problem with virtual reality. It's that you're sitting in a room and it's a non-social experience. I mean, in the sense that you can't get a bunch of people, sitting next to you like you would in front of a couch to play a console game, right? It's more of a solo experience. And you also need expensive immersion equipment for the full effect of the VR. So you need that thing where it simulates you being able to actually walk. You might need peripherals if the game requires more than just a gamepad. So VR in its current form is more of a niche market. It's the hardcore kind of solo gamer market. On the other hand, what I'm really excited about is augmented reality, AR, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the next breakthrough. You've already seen hints of it with something like Google Glass, and that's just the beginning. So you'd be walking down the street and you look at a store and it pops up with stats about the store. It enhances real life. And that's going to target a market much broader than the virtual reality, headset over eyes thing. It's going to be kind of like how smartphone games can be played by everyone. It's games for non-gamers, kind of like how the Wii brought in families when you have a controller that's incredibly simple to use and is more to do with actually moving your arm instead of sitting in a kind of solo position with a gamepad. But over the years, you're going to see AR start to become a really big thing. Now, you can have kind of team-based, like real life, you getting out and doing stuff with your friends. Imagine laser tag, but in a massive warehouse, like a warehouse kind of scale, and they've made it so that in your eyes, through your Google Glass, it looks like a dungeon. So you are essentially dungeon crawling with a small team of people, and you can fight dragons because the AR makes it possible by maybe putting something on the ground that says, hey, a dragon is here, and then it detects your bodily movements. See, whereas VR is just like you sitting there and just like experiencing it with you being lazy, AR encourages you to exercise and get out there, and anyone can get into it because by the time they roll these things out, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be using AR as a replacement for smartphones. So anyone can like turn around and say, hey, I've got a few friends, instead of, drinking that night, how about we go drinking and then fight some freaking dragons? That'd be quite fun. It's not going to turn out exactly like that, but I can totally see that that's where it's going, that eventually we're going to start to realize that AR like destroys VR in every way, and that's going to explode in terms of being the thing that the major populace actually engages with. So let's move on to the WoW Q&A now. If you guys aren't interested in WoW, then just tune out after this point. we got a question from JC the Legend. Do you think WoW to consoles is imminent? With all the abilities being taken away and the success of Diablo on console, do you think Blizzard would ever create Xbox One and PS4 servers? Okay, so it is true that Blizzard have pruned abilities from your hotbar, but they know when to stop. They know what abilities are iconic or actually useful and add some gameplay elements. At this stage, they're not going to keep pruning abilities each expansion until we've got like 2 buttons to hit, that a toddler could do. Like, they know what they're doing. Now, World of Warcraft in its current state being ported to consoles, it's a possibility, but the chances are so low. Okay, here's the first hurdle, right? It's the social aspect. It's one of the main things that sets MMOs apart from other games. And to do that, you need a keyboard to be able to type things. Or, if you're going to port it to console, they would have to have a headset required. So a keyboard or a headset. As soon as you take away that social aspect, it just turns into every multiplayer game ever. Now, another problem is that if you think about StarCraft 64 or Warcraft to the PS1, and how they have to compress a million buttons into hotkeys. And that means it's uncomfortable and difficult to remember. If you think about it, if I want to go into, the character sheet in WoW, I have to press C, or I can move my mouse over to the actual button on the bottom of the screen and then press it like that. I've got 2 options, very simple options, to open up this sheet. Now, on a console, I have one choice, and usually that's to press like 2 buttons at the same time. I hold a trigger to bring up a list of like the menu things, and then I press another button and I navigate through the list of, it's so confusing and nobody wants to do that. People just want simple solutions, like a touch screen where you can just press a button, a keyboard where you can just press a button, instead of holding 8 buttons and then doing these other things. It sucks. JC the Legend mentioned that Diablo 3 was ported successfully to consoles, and that is true, but you have to bear in mind that the profits Blizzard made from consoles, it wasn't actually that big. It was like a 15% increase, possibly. Now I will admit this, possibly because they were too late to launch. They launched it way after Diablo 3 had actually come out, so maybe that percentage would have been higher, but it's not as if they doubled their profits. And finally, Blizzard, when asked the question, is it going to be ported to consoles, have said no chance on multiple occasions. Now, one of the former developers, Greg Street / Ghostcrawler, has said that he would like to see it ported to consoles, but A, he doesn't work at that company anymore, and B, liking to have something done is not the same as saying I and a bunch of people are actively getting it done. Like, people can have intentions to do things and then not do them. Now, I think Blizzard, moving forward, they are open to multi-platform games. Yeah, I think Heroes of the Storm, which you could put on consoles because the buttons are limited, and then Hearthstone as well, which is on tablets. Overwatch could easily be ported because it's just a shooter. Like, it's a shooter. I mean, clearly a mouse and keyboard is better for a shooter, but they could, if they wanted to, put it onto a console. Like, just look at Team Fortress. Now, if they were to make a World of Warcraft sequel, maybe they would optimize it for consoles, but don't expect that anytime soon. Apparently, Blizzard are done making, big expensive games. They would rather focus all their efforts on those smaller, more profitable ones, which they have confirmed, and which is really, really sad to hear. But what can you do? Now, a question from Ross Cow. If you could change something about WoD, what would it be and why? So we've all managed to get our paws into Warlords of Draenor a little bit in the last couple of weeks. And you know what? The only thing I would fix about WoD is to remove LFR. But that's a whole bag of chips that I don't want to sink my teeth into, so I'm not going to. But other than that, I am incredibly happy with Warlords of Draenor. Sucks about how many broken queues there were at launch, and I feel sorry for Blizzard because the queue problems probably lost them hundreds of thousands of subscribers, which just came in for the expansion. So they're probably not gonna come back. But if you can move past that, and we all should have moved past it now, they have fixed it, it's a non-issue now. there are so many things to do outside of raiding. It is incredible. I thought when they were gonna prevent people from doing raids for about 2 or 3 weeks that we weren't gonna have anything to do, but between the garrison and PvP and pet battles and challenge modes and just exploration to find, you know, garrison supplies and pets and toys, it's great. Like, challenge modes are the difficult endgame right now. I'm sure once we're all sick of doing dungeons that it will no longer be, but by that time the normal and heroic raids will have dropped, so no complaints there. And the number one fear I had was that they were going to nerf dungeon progression into the ground. When I did it on the beta, I really liked how challenging the dungeons were, and they kept that in for at least challenge modes, and heroic dungeons feel sufficiently difficult enough for a daily thing that you have to do to get garrison supplies and also gold. So I am totally fine with wiping a couple of times and that's it in a heroic daily, not a big deal. And getting bonus gold if you have a full pre-made group, whether with your guildies or your friends or with the group finder, or bonus stats if you just group with randoms, i.e. you just want to get the dungeon done now. And then of course challenge modes, which are like mini raids, but they have a nice piece of gear at the end, the 640. Shame it's gonna be meaningless as soon as LFR comes along. But hey, what can you do? Apart from that, super happy with the expansion launch. I'm sure everyone's gonna start complaining about the expansion soon. Don't listen to them, it's just like Timeless Isle. Like, it's fun stuff. Don't let sour grapes spoil your dinner, because you shouldn't be eating grapes around dinner time. They are a snack food. Unless you're having it for breakfast or lunch, in which case you can have the sour grapes on the side, but don't complain about them when you eat them. You chose to eat the sour grapes. Now this last part of the video is for Oceanic players, so if you're not from Oceania, you should probably just tune out here. Last time I made a call out to look for a guild, and I managed to find one on Frostmourne, and I'm quite happy with it. However, what I found out is that raids are now flexible from 10 to 30 members in both normal and heroic. So now that it's a new expansion, I'm sure there's going to be a shifting of, you know, who's going to be raiding what. And since it is 10 to 30 players, it means you have room to recruit a bunch more people, and that way you always have enough members for a raid instead of, you know, only having 10 people and then someone doesn't show up and you can't raid and that's awful. Now you can just recruit, you know, up to 30 people and everything's cruisy. So my Frostmourne guild is recruiting. They raid on Friday and Saturday nights, subject to change. If you are currently on the Frostmourne realm or you're thinking about going there, then I encourage you to apply on the forum post. I have it linked in the description box below. Now I am not in charge of recruitment, that is for the guild leader, and he is okay with, you know, giving a shout out to see if anyone's interested. So make sure you read the whole post. It's for Frostmourne only, and I'm personally not adding any battle tags, just, you know, apply on there and see if we're interested. Anyway, that is it for this Q&A. Have a good one!